Let's call meeting to order. Approval of last month's minutes.
Motion made to approve the minutes of last session, January 26th.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Just wanted to start off by thanking the board again for taking the time last week on planning session. It was certainly worthwhile and an extended period of discussion, but I want to thank you for all your time and input during that. Since we covered so much ground in that, don't have much to add there. We'll jump right into the agenda and start with the first item of business. So in the finance section, E2, payment of bills, including your pack with the AGHL office rendered through January 31st, 2026. The Williams McCarthy services rendered through January 16th of 2026. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to then the approval of accounts payable invoices. So accounts payable invoices this month are $1,850,845.84. Were there any questions regarding the items listed for the invoices to be approved? None, we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the accounts payable invoices.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Moving on to item B, then the 2026 annual pension valuation report presented by Brett Schwab of Schwab Actuarial Services. Brett is here to review that annual review of the recommended pension contribution. So Brett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks much, Mike. Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Secretary and Treasurer, everybody else in the audience. Thanks. It's wonderful to be here again with you this year. So I'm going to go over kind of the update of the pension plans and also the OPEB plan, see where we're at there. And I'm going to give you some information, some background to help you decide what's appropriate for a cash contribution to pension plans for this year. Okay. So since last February, last meeting, the pensions were funded with last year's approved amount of 1.75 million. Half was put in February and half in August. We updated the accrued benefits for additional service and pay through 7/1/2025. We then produced annual benefit statements for all the active participants and the terminated vested participants. Susan reviewed those and they were sent to all the participants. Okay, then we did the financial accounting for your financial statements, and those are done and Mike reviewed those and they went to the auditors and they put them in your financial statements at 6/30/2025. Okay, so this meeting kind of kicks off the 2026 projects. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with just kind of overview of the accounting. Okay, so that is on page 1, stamp page 1, if you want to turn to that page. And essentially for the pension plans, we perform both valuations for cash funding and for accounting. Okay. And the Government Accounting Standards Board, they mandate methods for the actual methods they use for the accounting. So that's why we perform both, because we use slightly different methods for the funding valuations. However, the accounting valuations that are performed at 6/30, say last year, 2025, and the funding valuations for this year, for 7/1/25 through 6/30/2026, are effectively, they're done on the same date. They use the same asset values and they use similar participant data, and really it'd be the same, except there's a little gap between when we do the financial accounting valuation and funding valuation. So if we know of any status changes between that little gap period, I reflect that just to make sure the valuation is as accurate as it can be. So for example, this year we had 2 people that we know had impending retirements, and so we reflected that in cash funding valuation. Okay, so the retiree medical valuation, the OPEB, also the accounting is performed, and there's a separate trust for that, for cash to pay premiums, but it's not legally attached to the OPEB. So basically it's RMTD's monies and they can be spent other places if needed. So it's not, so there's no funding valuation for there. So there's no annual funding mechanism for that plan. Okay. So let's turn to page 2. It has a highlight of the accounting on page 2. Now a more detailed summary is included in the appendix for reference, but at a high level, this table here on page 2 shows that the pension plan funded status has improved over the prior year. Now, the funded status can be very volatile.
I'm sorry.
Although, no,
Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
okay. So funded status can be very volatile, primarily due to the actual investment returns versus our assumed return. So we assume 6.5% long term, which you would think is reasonable and appropriate. But you can see that at the bottom row in that table has the investment returns. And so essentially in after years of good returns, the cash contributions and the funded percentage is usually a bit higher after a good rate of return and vice versa. So for the assets and the fund percentage can be volatile. If you look at the first row there, you see the assets have gone up the last 3 years because we've had good returns. But the 3 years prior to that, it was a little volatility as we had some down market years. And so these last 3 years, like I said, we had good returns, 10.2, 12.3, 9.1, but you see the year before that we had negative 12. And I nobody knows what's going to happen with the market, but it seems to me that like every 3 year cycle, we seem to have a blip, so I'm not predicting the one this year, but you never know. I mean, I keep saying you can't keep going up and up and up and up, but it does. So we'll just cross our fingers and hope that continues. Now for the liabilities, we monitor the demographic assumptions that go into that every year. So whether it's mortality or termination, retirement rates, just to make sure it's properly valued. And so usually that goes up every year so that people accrue more service and their pay increases. So the liability kind of increases, but it's more predictable. You can see it's kind of a increasing line with a relatively level slope. And so it generally increases with additional accruals. But these increases are that's what we talk about each year. Basically, that's the normal cost that is funded. So we basically fund the accruals each year. Okay. And so the current funded status there you can see is 95.9%. And it's pretty strong compared to other state and local pensions. Certainly compared to the Illinois pension plan, that's one of the worst in the country. So we're doing pretty good. Looking forward to the June 30, 2026 funded status, that's going to depend on what we decide to put in this year and also the rate of returns we receive on the current assets. Okay. Now the OPEB liability at 6/30/2025 was $2.55 million. Now remember, this is a frozen plan. So at that valuation date, we had 23 remaining participants. Okay. Now the liability for that plan could fluctuate in the near term. Whether it's changing interest rates or your insurance premiums or actual claims that come in. So it could be volatile over the next few, short term, but long term it'll decrease as participants, fall off the plan. So now let's move to the funding section in the next couple pages. So on page 3, we have a similar 6-year snapshot on page 3 in that table there. And again, there's a more detailed summary in the appendix for reference. But consistent with the accounting, the funded percentage increased from the prior year due to the continued contributions and the positive investment returns. Now, in fact, the same comments really apply that we just talked about for the accounting. The assets and returns are the same. The present value benefits or the liability, they're a bit lower for the funding, but like I said, because we use slightly different methods. So it makes the funded percentage a bit higher. And in fact, this year we just nibbled over the 100% return. So we don't have the unfunded level that we've had in prior years this year. But the story's kind of the same. So now RMT has historically contributed the normal cost as a minimum cash contribution for the year. So the normal cost includes that additional accruals for additional year of service and additional pay. It also includes a level of any unfunded accrued liability. And we've had that in past years, but this year we don't have that extra cost layer. Okay, not to say that we're not going to have it in the future, but this year we don't. So the annual normal costs have been between 1.04 and 1.66 over the past decade. And the annual contribution have been at least the normal cost. Typically, it's a little bit higher. So the 2025-26 plan year normal cost, again, it's lower than we would have expected due to the increased cash contributions from last year, and also the good rate of returns. So the recommended 25-26 cash contribution is a minimum of the normal cost of $842,000. Okay. And I guess before we talk about the proper amount, let's go to page 4. And that has a graph of the funded percentage and a table of the normal cost and cash contributions, returns, and the funded percentage on a couple of different bases over the last 6 years. And I also have some estimates for the 6/30/2026 plan year end as well. Now, the normal cost, again, it broadly reflects the prior year contribution amount and the rate of return, meaning the higher the contributions that go in the prior year and the more return that you earn, usually you get lower normal costs and lower, needed monies the next year. But the last columns show the funded percentage on both a current service and projected basis. But if you look at the table, if we can go back to 2020, you can see that the normal cost was 1.4 million. We put in 1.5, just a tad bit more, but we had a 1.2% return. Okay, so following year, go back to the normal cost column there, we went up a little bit, 1.66 million. Now we put in 2.5 because we won't get into it, but we had some extra cash in the OPEB fund that we didn't think we needed, so we kind of transfer that in the pension plan. So our cash contribution was a lot higher than normal cost, and we had a fabulous return year. So our normal cost went down to just over $1 million. Okay, we put in 1.6, but we had a negative 12.8% return. So the normal cost went back up to 1.65. That's what we put in for contribution, had positive returns, lower normal cost the next year. Same story, put in the contribution, good returns, lower normal costs, and then another year. So we're down to 842 this year because we had 3, stellar years of returns in a row. So the last bucket of numbers there, what I did is I kind of assumed an 842 contribution is the minimum amount and assumed, okay, that's going to go in at least. And I got the 12/31/2025 asset values in the trust, and I projected that to the end of the plan year at 6/30 at 3 different scenarios. I did an annual rate of the 6.5 assumed. What if we go 0% or be a -%? So those are the projected benefit or funded percentages based on both an accrued basis, so the current service, current pay under the GASB line, and then a future service and future pay. So basically, all the benefits that will be accrued at retirement is under the PVFB line. So those are kind of the percentages that we could expect based on those assumptions. Okay. Now, I have in the appendix detailed results, and I can go through that or not. It depends if it's a value to you, or we can talk about the cash contribution. However you want me to proceed is fine.
Questions?
I think just to understand that last on the scenario for it's, even if we get a negative 6.5% return, we will be, still funded at our 91%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question too, because that kind of relates back to what I was saying earlier too, is that, this year, I mean, that's on a accounting basis, so it's slightly different than what a funding percentage would be, but it's, it's pretty close. But if we had a negative return and that's where we ended up next year, well, then our normal costs would go up because we'd have not only the accruals, but we'd have that layer of unfunded accrued liability we have to pay as well. So basically, whatever unfunded amounts we have on an accrued basis, we kind of amortize that and pay. It's another layer of cost in total cost each year.
Thank you.
So move on to special contribution this year. Is that okay. If there's anything else you want to add with that?
That's fine. Like I said, there's a lot of numbers. I love numbers. They're the best. I don't need to go through them if it's not going to be.
So Shelby, you want to go over the memo recommendation?
Yep, so just as a reminder, in fiscal year 2026, we budgeted and it was approved by the board, 1.75 million was the estimated contribution to the pension plan for the 25-26 plan year. Since the budgeted amount exceeds the recommendation minimum cash contribution, staff is recommending proceeding with the budgeted contribution of 1.25 million for the 25-26 plan year. So we're requesting approval to contribute the 1.25 million, plan to be to the pension account. 1/2 of the amount, which is $625,000, will be contributed now, and then the other half of the amount would be contributed at the end of the fiscal year when we receive our June dope reimbursement from IDA per usual.
You need a motion?
We need a motion.
Oh, okay. I move the motion to approve the 1.25 million for the 25-26 fiscal. It's a fiscal year, you said?
It's the
2026.
fiscal year
Yeah.
26.
26,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, well, actually, it's kind of confusing.
They
The
do,
fiscal year and the plan year is the
Yeah.
same. but
Oh, the plan
so
year.
it's 6:30 to 7/1 to 6:30.
For the plan year, with allocating 625 million now and then the rest.
625,000.
Thousand, okay, sorry. 25,000, sorry.
Share the remainder.
I can make that correction, 625,000 now and then the rest and then later on.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Brett, thank you so much for coming in. Appreciate all your time and your efforts and putting this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank goodness you love numbers.
Well, you do too.
No, I'm.
All right.
Admit it.
All right, moving on to the next item of business, we have the
Yeah, thank you.
approval, obviously, the annual pension, we're taking care of that. The next item is the review of fiscal year 2027 draft operations budget. So included in your packet were the draft budget and the budget summary that Xavier and I put together. Xavier, do you want to go through the?
Yeah. So we have the proposed 2027 draft budget, and just to point out some of the changes within the budget. When we talk fixed route, we are, for the fixed route service, it includes a total of 125,972 hours compared to last year's, which was 111,194. This is to increase service primarily on weekdays for fiscal year 27. Fixed route ridership is projected to be slightly higher than fiscal year 26 annualized total. And then when we look at demand response paratransit, we're budgeting a total of 78,268 hours, which is slightly down from fiscal year 26 projection of 81,568 that we budgeted for. Currently, the annualized total for fiscal year 26 ridership is projected to be about 144,848 rides, which is less than what was projected in the fiscal year 26 budget. Through December 2025, the fiscal year 26 ridership has decreased about 1.9% compared to the same period last year. The district projects about 2.8% ridership increase from fiscal year 26 annualized to fiscal year 27, which will allow for some growth in both RMTD paratransit as well as State Line Mass Transit District ridership. When we look at salaries and expenses for the year, we are increasing to 206 employees, which is increasing 5 full-time and 2 part-time employees, and then our salary and wages expenses are projected to increase 12% to about $13 million for the fiscal year 27 budget. The increase is associated with the increase in service hours, staffing levels, and just overall wage rate increases, which are budgeted to range between 3 to 3.5% across all departments for fiscal year 27. When we look at total fringe benefits, we're projecting about a 1.6% increase, which is, again, there's going to be a decrease due to the reduced projection for pension liability payments, as we just discussed. We're budgeting for 1.25 million next year as well. But that's offset by increases in medical costs as well as workman's comp. When we look at the services section, our total expenses are projected to actually, it says decrease, but I realized early today, so I have to make an adjustment in here that we I inadvertently left out our professional management service contract with CCS for next year, which is about 150,000. So that will increase and will be about the same for this year for services as last year based on that increase. So that will be one adjustment I'll be making before the final proposed budget is approved. But some of the major changes where we did have some one-time project management services associated with our phone project and our financial services project that we were working on, as well as we've been working to reclassify some items that were in professional services that actually should be under subscription and dues. So there are some changes there as well. Under materials and supplies, we're projecting about a 14% increase from last year, and this is due to just projected cost increase and usage for projected cost increase per gallon of fuel and then increased usage. When we look at utilities, we're projecting about a large increase up to $835,000, but that's because of resulting in the facility expansion and the increased utilities around that as well. Also, we have been reclassifying some things that were under utilities that should be under utilities that were under subscriptions instead. So again, we're making some moves to where things should be. So we're also reflecting that in the budget as well. When we look at total casualty and liability expenses, we're projecting about a 2.5 increase for that next fiscal year. Not much changing with taxes and vehicle registration. Our purchase transportation, which is our Boone County of Aging contract, is decreasing slightly by 1%, just because they're anticipating a little bit lower trips, where they're budgeting for 24,490 trips in fiscal year 27 compared to 26,000 they budgeted in fiscal year 26. So miscellaneous expenses, we are projecting an increase there as well. This is due to, again, some of it is reflecting the reclassification of things that should have been under professional services. The miscellaneous expense line item also includes our lobbyist contract with Zephyr, so that's in there for this year's budget as well, paying them. Moving on down, not much is changing with lease and rentals or debt service. Overall, our expense budget for fiscal year 2027 is projected to increase 8% to $32,946,763 compared to this year, which we're at $30,495,481. That's our expense budget. Just to summarize revenue, our total fixed route revenue is projected to increase about 1%. That's just a small projection to $843,000 for fiscal year 27. For demand response paratransit revenues, we're projecting to have minimal change in that. When we look at subsidies, total subsidies from state, federal, local municipalities, and county sources are projected to increase about 8.5% for fiscal year 27. The state and federal subsidies are projected to account for about 81.1% of the total subsidy for fiscal year 27. The IDOT Downstate Operating Assistance Program subsidy for eligible operating expenses is projected to be 35%, which is $25 million due to the shift in the DOPE reimbursement rates from 65% to 80% of eligible operating expenses. Local municipality and county subsidies are projected to account for about 17.5% of the total subsidy in fiscal year 27. And then the SMTD subsidy is projected to account for about 8.1% of the total subsidy for fiscal year 27. Overall, the fiscal year 27 budget projections for revenue increased about 8.9%. That's all I have. Any questions?
That's I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of projections, so.
So the itemized list follows the summary, but if you just can recap the process again, Xavier, from.
Yes, so today opens up our 30-day review and inspection for the public and everyone to look at it and have any questions or any changes. The final budget presentation will be at the board meeting on March 26th to approve the final budget. And like I stated, we already have one small $150,000 change that I'll have to incorporate into this, but If there's any questions or anything you want to go through in more detail, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just one question regarding the revenues for the fixed routes. You projected the 1% increase. Is that a normal increase in the past, or has that just remained steady throughout
That's kind of,
historically?
yeah, so last year, I think last year we were, the revenue, since we've been changing revenue fares and there's been a lot more free fares, we haven't seen the same growth
Gotcha.
as we have in the past. So we're just like, we feel like that's a good, 1% is a good estimate for the next year based on that.
So we try to be conservative on
Yes.
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If we do what I heard.
Awesome.
Any other questions?
Not a question as much as just, you know, in terms of what we've been talking about, the plans to see if there's potential for increasing service on weekdays. You know, I know that played into the budget, and so it's just good to see that kind of, that policy transition into the numbers and,
Yeah, that,
accounted for there.
yes, that assumes for, the addition of at least two additional runs weekday, daytime to increase frequencies on at least two routes from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. So it's just a large, it's a large chunk over 52 weeks of the year.
Yep.
So, any other questions or comments?
No, thank you. It's very detailed.
And I appreciate all staff's work and support on all of this, and especially Xavier putting this together. It's a long process, and everybody on the team plays an integral part, and so appreciate everyone's time on this. So we look forward to submitting the final budget to the board for approval next week. Well, thank you so much. All right. With that, then we'll move on to item E, which is the approval of the audited financial statements for December of 2025. Included in your packet. Any questions on that, or Xavier is happy to walk you through that with cover the memo that was included in the packet.
Yeah, there's again, month to month, there isn't anything on this report that has changed significantly. Everything's on task for where we would expect to be at this point in time.
I'll make a motion to approve the unaudited financial statement for December.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Then item F, the pension portfolio review through February 17th, 2026, and pension investment statement for the month ending January 31st, 2026, included in your packet. Another positive performance there on both fiscal year to date and year to date. If there's any questions from the board, happy to answer those. Otherwise, we'll keep going.
Okay.
Seeing none, then we'll move on to the operations, maintenance, and facilities report. So, including your packet was a summary memo from Dan and I covering this month's activities along with the reports. Dan, you want to walk us through the highlights?
Sure. So for January of 26, fixed route ridership was up 3.9% then compared to January of 2025. And there was one less weekday in January of 26. So paratransit conversely was down a whopping 11%. A lot of that was due to the extreme cold weather we had. We had a lot of more cancellations than we normally would have, which is pretty common on the paratransit side when we see bad weather, and also Center Hope closed for a couple days as well. And so that's that kind of an outlier on the number there. You have the Georgia's maintenance report in there. Overall, things were pretty good. All the vehicles were inspected for the maintenance plan, and we've had plenty of vehicles. We're glad it warmed up a little bit. That cold spell was a little rough on us. So facilities, the building maintenance guys spent a lot of time catching up on bus stop signs. We've been fortunate. There's been a whole lot of snow recently, so we've been able to get some resources going on, mainly moving a lot of bus stop signs and preventive maintenance. Project reports, we did include the report from our owner's rep CCS in the board packet. Project's moving right along. Cabinets are being installed, just a lot of little detail stuff. Every time you go over there, it seems like there's more stuff. So now it's a lot easier for us to get a view of how the room's laid out instead of looking at the drawing, because there's actually cabinets there. We can see where the refrigerators are going to go and the vending machines. So that's moving right along. The fiber installation, outside of them hitting a water line outside or when they're digging the street, the project has gone smooth. We're testing it out here for a couple weeks. And then, once they're happy with everything there, then we'll go live and, we'll be adding the phone system to it. So for the phone system, obviously we still haven't done it yet because we're waiting for the fiber project to be done. They were out, I guess 2 weeks ago now. There were some data drops that had to be added. They had a crew out here and added the data drops. And once we're happy with the fiber, we'll pick a date, then they'll come back out and we'll physically plug phones in. They'll do the cutover, which should go fairly smooth. So, and that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Any questions?
No, it's great to have the tour, after, I guess it was after last meeting, to go through everything and see how it's coming along and starting to see how it all fits together. And
Yeah,
see,
and
you know, versus the photos.
right, and we're still thinking for temporary occupancy, probably end of March, so. Yeah. So moving right along.
Unless there's any other questions, we'll move on to the HR report. Okay, so included in your packet was the RMT claims history for January of 2026. Continuing the same trends we had last month, trending a little bit down in expenses there on both sides. Any questions on that report? If none, we'll keep moving along. On to E5 marketing, including your packet was the marketing update for the month. It has outlined some training efforts that Orlando conducted with YWCA staff, some social media examples of postings that we had and outreach activities, along with some signage contracts that we had totaling about $3,170 in revenue. So, any questions on the report?
No, I love to see these different campaigns. It's fun.
Yeah, okay. All right, we'll keep moving along then. E6, no report for grants this month. E7, safety and training report, the report for January 2026 in your packets included for review. Obviously, a little bit quieter month in January, thankfully. So it's good to see, despite the weather, that we had a good month. Any other questions in that report? We can keep moving along to other business. All right, E8, other business. First item is the award of digital marketing services contract that was included in your packet for review. So as outlined, we got a couple quotes from some marketing groups to aid us with some digital marketing campaigns for the RMT EduRide, Free Ride, or Free GD Pass program. 2 bids received, one from Narratives and the other from Town Square. The lower of the 2 was from Narrative for a 4-month amount of $35,400. Recommendation was to award to Narrative for that purpose. Any question on that?
I was just curious if it's, is the 4 months, is the length of the campaign, so do you get rolling content throughout those 4 months? Okay.
Yep. Any questions? Otherwise, just a motion to approve.
Motion, okay. I move the motion to approve the 4-month contract of $35,400 to fund the EduRide program for free GD post-secondary education pass program.
Award
For narrative, thank you.
You're welcome. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is the word service truck. Purchase. Dan, you want to cover the memo?
Yeah, we identified some federal funds that we had programmed a while back for a new service truck for our garage mechanics. So we reached out to Sourcewell. What Sourcewell is kind of like a clearinghouse. So it's a government run thing. They do all the legwork, make sure you're obeying all the clauses and everything. It saves us having to go out and get the 3 different bids and make sure everybody meets the standards. So it really helps out on staff time for us. So Bonnell and Dixon has the contract for the truck that we need. It's gonna be a Ford, F-350, with some snow equipment and, air compressor and a lift gate mounted to it, so, so really, that's the only bid, and it's already been vetted and competitively bid, so, final price for the truck is $126,834.08. And, staff is recommending that, board approve issuing a purchase order to Vinyl Industries in that amount.
I'll make a motion to approve purchase order to Benel Industries in the amount of $126,834.08.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're really excited. We're replacing a 1997 Ford Explorer, so the guys will be happy down there.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, moving along then to item C, which is, the discussion take action is needed on the local post-secondary education adult education DD free ride program. Included in your packet was the memo outlining that, when we adopted this program last year in coordination with the city of Rockford, that we did that as a one-year pilot program. Obviously, and part of that was contingent on the city continuing with the additional funding to support the program. The city re-upped on that and has committed to sponsoring and supporting that program moving forward. And so therefore, after seeing a year of success in ridership in that program, we want to take action to make it a permanent program moving forward. So that's what the memo outlines, and so asking for the board's approval to implement that as a permanent program.
I'll make a motion to make the local post-secondary education and adult education GED free ride program permanent.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item is the award of energy supplier. So, we discussed before, we've been waiting on the market here, and we received bids back from our brokers here this morning on where the lay of the land is with the market, and got some positive data back on that. And so we're recommending moving forward with awarding energy supply now that the energy prices are down. Dan, you want to cover the rest of it?
Yeah, so like I said, we went out, for bid. We just got the fresh bids in today, so because it changes every day. So, basically, historically, we have gone with, there's really two types of energy. We can buy the mixed energy, which I won't say it's dirty energy, but it could be coal, it could be natural gas, it's not necessarily cleaner energy. The other prices we receive are for renewable, which is, it's only solar, wind, or hydro. So there's not even nuclear in there. So, as you can see in there, there's a little bit of price difference between the two. But we, as we've done in the past, would recommend that we go with the cleaner. Price difference is only about $4,500 a year over 3-year contracts. So, in looking at the bids, Aggressive Energy was the lowest, at 0.07861 per kilowatt hour. And we would like to do a 3-year. They were pretty flat. I think the second page of the memo also has the pricing as well. So, you can see they're towards the bottom of the page. They're pretty flat for all 3 years. There wasn't a whole lot of increase. So, projected over 3 years, at that price with them would be $310,364.68. And we're saying projected because obviously we're not 100% sure what the new building costs are going to be as far as power, but we know, I mean, we're basing the cost on if comparatively by charge per kilowatt hour. So that would be staff's recommendation that we give Mike the authority to enter in a contract with Aggressive Energy in the renewable energy price market, in roughly that amount. Just be forthcoming. If we sign it tomorrow, it's going to change just probably like 1/100 of a cent per kilowatt hour because it trades every day. It's a commodity. So, but it's going to be pretty close to that, and Aggressive will still be the lowest.
Yeah. Questions?
I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to execute a contract with Aggressive Energy for the submitted rate through its energy broker, Rockford Energy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to the end. We have executive session. Before we get into that, next meeting is scheduled for March 26th at 3:30.
The Thursday. Yep. Yes, you did. Yep.
Good with that.
Mark, what was it?
March
Oh, yeah.
26th. Yep, it's a Thursday.
Okay.
I got a quick, question, look at the head, when's the meeting in April, is the April?
Oh, we'll go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters pursuant to five ILCS 122 C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
Motion,
Make a motion to move into executive session.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Starting recording.
Make a motion to move out of executive session.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to adjourn.
I'll move the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.